Hi guys, I wanted to get on and talk to you about the launch for Until We All Share Joy. This is my fourth book. It's a novella and it is about a lesser known character in my series. Just making sure the kids are squared away right now. I was reading out loud to them and it just took longer than I thought, so I'm getting on a little bit later than I was planning on it. So I asked some questions on my stories the other day for what types of things people wanted me to talk about the book, and so I have some ideas, so we can go ahead and get started. So first of all, Until We All Share Joy is dedicated to my Aunt Bonnie, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about her. She, I think at the time of this video, does not know yet that the book is dedicated to her. My mom has her copy, so I guess she'll be getting it sometime this week when my mom sees her. So I only had two aunts growing up. Both my mom and my dad each had one sister. And my Aunt Jane is just like a really fantastic, wonderful lady that we love so much. But she lived several states away from us the whole time we were growing up. And so we just had a different kind of relationship with her, even though like we absolutely adored her. But my Aunt Bonnie lived close to us and she never married, and so she was just like part of all of our family celebrations and a huge part of our lives, and she's always been one of the most just encouraging cheerleader, just positive people I've ever met. Just an extremely friendly lady and just extremely supportive. And so when I started writing, she was one of the first people I ever told about it, and this is the first one of my books that she hasn't read before publication. So after this, you can get back to reading early copies, Aunt Bonnie. But she's always been super, super encouraging and like, Heather, I read a lot of books, and I tried to read yours, not as your aunt, but just as a regular reader, and it's just so good. And so anyway, she's near the top of one of the best cheerleaders I've ever had. And so Until We All Share Joy is dedicated to my Aunt Bonnie. I love her very, very much. And I'm looking forward to her finding out. She does not have Instagram, so I don't think she'll see this. To finally came up with the title Until We All Share Joy, which is not the original, well, not really what I wanted for the title. I really wrestled with it for a long time because I wanted it to keep the same cadence as my other books with single syllable words and verb, noun. And I really wanted gift to be in the title, and I just could not come up with a way for the word gift to go well and not use words I've already used in my other titles. So I feel like that would have gone better with what the book was about, but Until We All Share Joy is about sharing joy. The joy of recognizing who we are in Christ and how God sees us. And I think in this book, one of the characters gives that gift to someone else, and he continually reminds them that God loves them. And I think that gift that he gives her of continually reminding her how loved she is by God is a way that ultimately they share their joy, that joy with each other. So it is, and joy has a Christmassy feel, which I want to address pretty quickly here. This is actually, Until We All Share Joy is about a full year in the lives of my characters. It's about from a Christmas to a Christmas 1867 through Christmas 1868, with a couple extra scenes at the end. So it's actually not just about Christmas, it's about a full year. So I could market it either way, as a Christmas book or not as a Christmas book. So I'll probably be stressing more of it being Christmassy, in November and December. But the fact of the matter is it's not technically Christmas, just a Christmas book. It focuses on a lot of other things and a lot of other times of year. So you'll see that in a lot of the reviews. A lot of people have mentioned that this can be read any time of the year. And I didn't want to sit on it and wait and release it, further in the year, when the fact of the matter is, cardinals are a year-round bird because they don't migrate. So it's not just Christmassy. So one of the questions I got yesterday was what prompted my writing this book. And really writing Until the Light Breaks Through is what prompted this book. Because when I finished that book was my third book, and it was mostly about Jack Young and about the Great Chicago Fire. And when I finished that, I was surprised by how Titan had shown up and really taken on so much of taking care of the family. He became a lot bigger of a character in that book than I expected. But I was like, at this point he was a doctor and his family needed a doctor. And so he was really in a position to be able to step up and take care of his family. And that surprised me about him. And when I wrote Until We All Find Home and Until We All Run Free, as you know, I have a large cast of characters. I have the Dinsmore family and the Young family. And so because I have so many characters, I really can't give them all, a whole bunch of page time and lines, like speaking lines, So Titan was someone that I specifically kind of had fade into the background on purpose, so that he wouldn't just be a distraction. Like, you have so many people that you're dealing with and hearing from and seeing and wondering where they are. And so I kind of purposefully put Titan in the background. Like he was there, but I just made him kind of introverted and quiet. He does crack a few jokes. He cracks a joke in actually both of my first two books. But because he is a member of the family, like you do hear him mention time to time, like you heard he got engaged and so on. He interacts with the family, but it's not like he was really given a front row seat. So then when I decided to write his book, I'm like, well, now I need to explain why he was like that, and then how he ended up being the person in Until We All Run Free, who's like coming over and taking care of his family. So I was curious to know like what happened in that year between the end of Until We All Find Home and then when he gets married in Until We All Run Free. So that's why I wrote his book, because I was curious to see what had happened. What was interesting about that, and like, don't be like me, if you're going to write a series, like best practice is you plan it all out ahead of time. And I obviously did not do that. Every single book that I have written has been the last book I was planning to write until this point. Until The Light Breaks Through was the first time that I realized, like, no, I'm actually going to keep writing after this. But until that point, that was how I had always thought about my writing. So I actually didn't have a plan for Titan. And so now when I decided to write a book for Titan, and I went back to those books and began piecing out, like, where was he at different times, and what was going on in his life, and how old was he, and these types of things. And then, I had myself in a couple of sticky situations, actually. And I think that made Until We All Share Joy better. I think that made it a better book, because I was forced to be creative. I think the book would have been a lot more just kind of expected. There wouldn't have been many surprises in it if I had not written myself into so many corners with Titan. And so that was a good thing. I definitely had several times when I was really freaking out when I was writing the book, like, I really messed this up, like, I don't know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to get him out of this mess. And then when you read Until We All Share Joy, like, it all just fits, it all just flows, and you really see, like, well, I guess God has been preparing this all along, because I was not, so I can't take credit for that. So what inspired the characters? Well, I shared a little bit about that with what inspired the characters, but at this point, I'm writing my fourth book. I already have the cast of characters all set up. And so what inspired Titan was, like, I already had that character created. I wanted to show, like, why he was distant from his family before, and then why he wasn't now. And so that's what you'll see in Until We All Share Joy. And in Until We All Run Free, Eliza comes to visit, and she made a comment about noticing that Nora was the perfect complement to her brother's placidity. And so that was like all we knew about Nora, and that she fit right in with the family. And so that was what I had to go off of for Until We All Share Joy. So you'll see that with Nora, how she's pretty straightforward. She's pretty courageous. She's a very courageous young lady. She loves fearlessly, and she is a good complement, I think, to Titan. She calls him out, and she is a good person to walk alongside him. I was asked about the research for this book. So a lot of the research for this book was the Chicago Tribune from 1868. Actually, one of the first things that prompted this book was when I went to search for the what happened in Chicago, right, in 1868 and 1869. Like, I found one photograph, pretty much, and it was the photograph of the celebration of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, the celebration in Chicago. Because Chicago, really, where it was positioned, like the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad was going to open Chicago up even more to the west, and to all that like trade of goods back and forth and traffic. So it was a big deal in Chicago. So that was pretty much one of my what's the word? Like the platform that I jumped off from was that picture. And so the Transcontinental Railroad ended up, being a big part of the book. Nora's father works for it, but it's also not something that you see that much in the book because he's not there. He's working on the Transcontinental Railroad. Like, we're in Chicago with Nora. So I did research it, and you do see mentions from time to time, like the railroads as far as Wyoming, the railroads as far as Utah. It's snowing. It's 47 surveyors died in Indian attacks last year. Stuff like that you'll see, but it's not, something that you're actually seeing in the first person. But I have Stephen Ambrose's Nothing Like It in the World, which I read when I was a teenager. And to be honest, the Transcontinental Railroad was one of just several really massive engineering feats that the Victorians accomplished. And it was just incredible. And I just don't think that there's another, I guess we look at the pyramids. I don't think something like that could be completed since then. Let's put it that way. But the way that men, just like with their sheer brute strength, carved out this path across America and across the mountains, is really impressive. And they are still using a lot of that path today for the railroads today. The one that was originally created in the 1860s. But most of the research, I read that book again for this, and then, my library had one book. I can't even remember what it's called. But most of those kinds of books are focusing on, the men at the top of who own the companies, the men who started the whole push for this. It's about like the money and the politics and all that kind of stuff. And they're really not so much about the lives of the actual men who worked on the railroad. And even so, like, part of what you might find might be equally about the Central Pacific as the Union Pacific. And because of that, like, those are completely different experiences. They're working in different climate, they have the Chinese over here, the Irish over here. So there's not a whole lot out there. And it's because they didn't have time to write about what they were doing. They were busy doing it. So most of what you read is actually kind of boring because it's about like the money and the politics. I did find the diary of Arthur Ferguson, who was a surveyor for the Union Pacific, and it's at History Nebraska, and they did send me some pages of his diary, but his handwriting is hard to read. So I use but again, not a whole lot of that ended up actually in my book. It was just kind of this background stuff that I learned. The other thing that I really researched was, like I said, I read the Chicago Tribune, so I could get an idea for what was going on in Chicago and what people cared about. And I think the more and more that I read these old newspapers, the more that I'm really struck by how different the people in the 1860s were than from us. And, they have like their humor column and their editorials, and they're like completely foreign from the types of things that we care about or that we can even like really understand what they're talking about. And I think that's really important for us to just recognize when we look at people of the past, that we are not in their headspace, and we can't really judge them, for the way that they thought, and the choices that they made, because they were completely different from how we think, and we look at them through a 21st century lens, and we cannot look at them through a 19th century lens. And they were really different from us, you guys. So a lot of historical fiction, we try to write the 19th century as well as we can and as faithfully as we can. But the fact of the matter is, if we actually wrote it like a 19th century person, a lot of it 21st century people wouldn't really be able to connect with or understand. Obviously we have classics like Jane Austen, and there are books that we can understand the humor, we can understand romance. Some things are universal, but at the same time, the ways that they approached these things were just totally different from the way that we approached them. Anyway, so I enjoy reading the Chicago Tribune. I'm always struck by how different their way of thinking was, and how different things were important to them. So from the Chicago Tribune, I found out things like what events were going on. Titan takes Nora out on a couple outings, and so all of those things were things I found from the Chicago Tribune for that particular week. So that's a lot of the research that I did. I don't want to give too much of the story away, but there's some other things that were going on in Chicago. Chicago got a gift from New York's Central Park, and so you'll read about that in the book. I got that piece of information, but I don't want to give too much away. So I was asked also what other books have similar vibes to my book, and I was going to hold it up and show you, but then I remembered I lent it to my aunt. But Jennifer Kuhn's The Unbroken Song, she wrote a Christmas novella that was written in Victorian era America. And it is not Hallmarky. It has some kind of realistic family situations. It's not gloomy. It's not just heavy or hard, but it's realistic. And that's a little bit of how Until We All Share Joy is as well. So I would say that's the closest comp title I can come up with for Until We All Share Joy, because I think with Christmas novels, they kind of have this definite expectation of following a really Hallmarky formula, because at Christmas time people are looking for something light and easy. And so I would say that our books aren't something that would be too just hard to read at the Christmas season, but I think also they are a little bit more accepting of what reality is for a lot of people, and that Christmas isn't always just in fact, it almost never is just sunshine and roses. Christmas is very often a hard time for people. And so I think those two books, her book and mine, I think they are just honest about that without really dragging you down into the depths. When I write with a little bit of a melancholy feel, which is just kind of my natural personality. So I would say for vibes, another author who writes that similar vibe is Joanne Biscoff. This is the only one I have another one. I have Sons of Blackbird Mountain. Yes. So she's obviously a much better author than I am. But I would say if you're asking for what's a similar vibe to mine, she was somebody I thought of pretty quickly, that she writes historical Christian fiction, very obviously Christian fiction, and she has that similar melancholy vibe. So for the rest of my launch day today, I don't have a whole lot going on, to be honest. I homeschooled my kids this morning, and I have to make supper tonight. I have no idea what I'm making. I have some pork out of the freezer. So if you have any ideas, I don't know what's for supper. That's where we are today. This is as far as I got. So I don't have any other real plans going on today, but this Saturday I'm going to be at a vendor fair. I'm really excited about it. I got my tent and my table and my display, and I'm hoping to connect with some new readers. It's a place I've never been before. So that's what I have going on later this week. Until We All Share Joy is available now on Amazon, on Kindle Unlimited, and on my website. And like I said, you can read it any time of year. It's just, I might pull out the Christmas side of things for marketing's sake and more Christmas appropriate times. But the fact is, it's not necessarily just a Christmas book. Thank you for being here. Thanks for everybody on Bookstagram who's been sharing about my book today. It's been really exciting to see all of you guys' posts and your enthusiasm and all the reviews. Oh my goodness, on Goodreads and on Instagram. You guys have been really amazing. So I'm really grateful for you. And how, like, I'll just ask, like, if anyone's willing to post about it, and, like, so many people respond, and that just means a lot. I'm really grateful for all that you guys do. So, I hope you guys have a good rest of the day, and if you read Until We All Share Joy, let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to, I like to talk about it, even if, I know it's kind of weird between, like, author and reviewer type things, but I just like to chat about, you know, like, who did you relate to the most and why, and who really bugged you. This is one that surprises me as a reader. As an author, I'm surprised when readers come back to me and they're like, so and so really annoyed me in that book, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. It's really funny to see how different people react to different characters, because they're totally different from each other. So I really love to hear that type of stuff. So I'm always up for just chatting about it, not in a how you think about it is wrong or right way, but just because, you know, these are both people that both of us love, and I love to just, like, talk about it and see what you think. So anyway, reach out anytime. So I'm going to get off now, and I hope you guys have a good day.